Part 4 of this 8-part video series on the Matroosberg 4x4 covers the section from the Larkenvlei view site to the obstacle comically known as Oopsie. Once you've had your fill of the lovely views at Larkenvlei, head back to the fork where you had turned right earlier, and along this section you'll be able to enjoy lovely views of neat orchards and silver lakes to the northwest over the farm. This will give you a good taste of what to expect in terms of scenery when you descend the route later. At the fork, turn right and follow the main track again. The road continues to be quite rough and peppered with rocks and ruts. It descends briefly to cross a small stream which is mostly dry, but in wet weather it flows across the track. The track starts climbing again within 150 meters via an easy S-curve. Whilst the gradient is not too severe, parts of the section are very rough and rocky. Take it slowly and remain in low range. The second half of the S-curve traverses solid rock, which allows for much better traction. The track now climbs steadily towards a false summit known as Die Nekkie. The distance from the fork to this false summit is only about 700 meters, but it takes a fair amount of time due to how rough the terrain is. The last 50 meters before the little summit, things get quite tricky and many vehicles end up here with a wheel or two losing traction. Choose your line very carefully and put your diff lock on if you have one. The final climb up towards Die Nekkie can get quite tricky, and it's important to know where the lowest parts of your vehicle's undercarriage are. Normally it will be the differential housing, but in many cases these are not in the center of the vehicle but offset to one side. Most 4x4s come out standard with bash plates, which will serve to some extent to protect the sensitive parts of the undercarriage like the engine sump and the gearbox. Should the bottom of your vehicle connect with a rock, stop immediately and assess the situation carefully. It's mostly a bad mistake to continue going ahead, as this might cause terminal damage to your vehicle and result in a costly recovery exercise. Rather try using a high lift jack to raise your vehicle off the obstacle and then push the vehicle to one side off the jack. There are many other ways to solve this problem, and it's a good idea to know how to get yourself out of this predicament. Often, just the simple act of getting all your passengers out of the vehicle might just provide enough clearance to get over the obstacle. The false summit comes up abruptly at a small widening at this middle altitude neck. If there are no cars behind you, this is another good spot to stop and take in the grand views. During the winter season, the left-hand side of the valley will often have a dusting of snow on it, and it's generally at this altitude that snow may be encountered on the track itself. Up ahead, the track can be seen snaking its way along the contours of the mountainside, whilst the views to the west behind you are an expanded view of what you saw earlier at the Larkenvlei view site. From this point, the track drops down steeply, and be aware of the very steep drop-offs to your left. If the road is very muddy, you'll need to drive down this section with extreme caution. There are several large mounds over the road to facilitate water runoff, and these will appear as axle twisters, but shouldn't present any problems if you have sufficient ground clearance. The drop down to the point known as Fonteinkie is only 200 meters in length, and there's almost always water on the track here. The spring here is not really deep and shouldn't present any problems. Along this descent, any passengers who suffer from acrophobia might well have a problem, as the drop-offs are very steep and it's a long way down to the bottom of the valley. In such a case, consider moving these passengers to the right-hand side of the vehicle. After the crossing of the spring, the road levels off for a few hundred meters, soon crossing a second stream, then bends away to the left through an easy curve, hugging the contour line of the mountain, but heading resolutely east-southeast towards the neck in the distance. The track remains fairly level for about 1 kilometer, and this is one of the easier sections of the ascent, which allows a slightly higher speed to be maintained, but having said that, you should never exceed 20 kilometers per hour at any point on this route. At the 3.4 kilometer point, the track begins ascending again and curves slightly to the right, where you'll arrive at a solid piece of bedrock which forms part of the track. Don't underestimate this obstacle. In dry weather it's not a problem, as your vehicle should have almost perfect traction up here. There are no loose rocks along this climb, and the going is easy, providing you choose your line properly and you don't stop, as the gradient is quite steep at around 1 in 4. Look at the rock slab ahead of you and note the angle of crossflow from right to left. About halfway up this rock, the slope tilts the opposite way towards the cutting. If your vehicle is going to start sliding on ice here, pray that it's where the slope is towards the mountain and not in the opposite direction. Immediately after the top of the rock, the road is specifically bad as it crosses another side stream where washaways and deep ruts are often present.